Hi, I'm Jan Egeland. I'm the eminent person, as it's called, of the Grand Bargain. I'm also the Secretary General of NRC. I have a background here, an image taken by one of our colleagues from a village in the Sahel. I believe it is in Burkina Faso. I wanted that as a background because that's what it's all about. How can we better help people in their hour of greatest need, Burkina Faso being one of the places where the number of displaced people in need, have grown exponentially. And how can we help the people help themselves? In part by helping their local organizations support themselves better in the future, so that we build civil society as and when we also serve people in need. So what is the Grand Bargain? Well, it's part of the 2016 Istanbul Summit for Humanitarian Affairs. It was a period when Syria and so many other countries were in deep crisis, and we all felt we needed to reboot humanitarian aid. There was a high-level panel coming with 3 recommendations that were accepted at that high-level Istanbul summit. One was to increase funding from new and additional donors. That has to some extent happened. There is much more money available for humanitarian work than 8-7 years ago. However, the gap has been growing since then. Gap between assessed needs and available resources, because needs went through the roof in this period. Not just in the Middle East, but we got so many other crises on top of that. And the needs went through the roof because the other goal, which was to shrink needs through better prevention of conflict, better risk reduction in an era of climate change, hasn't really happened yet. And then the third proposal accepted was a grand bargain between the donors to humanitarian aid and we, the aid organizations. Donors were supposed to give more quality aid, predictable, multi-year, flexible aid to relief groups with less bureaucracy. And then the aid organizations being more transparent, more accountable, and more oriented to do participation for the people in need, to and for and part of our work, and also localization through helping these local groups to take charge, really. And there was agreed in Istanbul that the target would be that 25% of all global funding would go to or through local organizations, being of, by, for the people, to quote the Gettysburg Address. The local organizations should be there helping their own people. They were there in the first place. They will stay there when international actors leave. This latter theme is one that you're going to discuss here at your annual meeting, and I'm glad about that, because we need more of an effort to reach the goal of more resources, reaching the first line of defense, which is very often the local groups. Instead of 25% of all funding going to and through local groups, it's been 2, 3, 4% in recent years. Possibly more if you count money going via the UN agencies that has a very large portion of the total humanitarian funding. And very many of those agencies work through local actors. We define funding for localization to count as direct as possible, which is either straight from the donor to the local group or via one intermediary. Since many donors have in their rule book that they cannot and will not go straight to local groups because of their stringent compliance rules, Intermediaries is the only way that many of the donors will be able to scale up the funding for localization. So Irish NGOs, Norwegian NGOs have to become more and better donors to and through, or rather partners with. The donors could be Ireland, the partner would be the Irish NGO in an equitable and quality partnership. So what's that? It is that, number one, as much funding should go straight to the actor, local actor, as close as possible to the people we serve. That group should have full and total participation by the people we serve. In addition, there has to be overhead going to the local group. My organization has finally, belatedly, decided that we will, if there is no funding for overhead for the local group, we will share the 7%, which is the normal donor overhead, with the local group, which can at times be then difficult because you sit as intermediary with the compliance obligation vis-à-vis the donor. We ask donors, and Denmark and others have said yes, that it should be 7% plus 7% of overhead for the local group and also for the intermediary. The best relationships are direct, not necessarily via an international group, although there can be capacity sharing between the international group, could be an Irish NGO, and the local group. They have a lot to teach us. We have a lot of things to transfer in terms of our experience to them after many years of international work. In the Grand Bargain, we have now agreement in a special caucus where the United States and ECHO and Denmark participated as donors, UNHCR and OCHA, ICWA, the NEAR Alliance. I co-chaired that with NEAR, which is one of the umbrellas for local groups. Also the other, A4AP, the other alliance of local groups, were there. In that caucus, there was agreement that all donors should, within this year, publish how and when they will reach the 25% goal. So I hope Ireland will also do that within this year. How and when to reach that goal, either through intermediaries or in direct funding. Of course, localization is also nearly connected with the other goal we have focus of late, which is quality funding. And here there is also progress, because in localization I see a lot of donors now, from the mighty US aid to ECHO, saying we will reach it, which means that there will be a massive new transfer of funding to local groups. Quality funding is nearly connected as well. Quality funding means multi-year, flexible funding, predictable funding for the humanitarian organizations. Making progress also here. Many donors do give only 1 year at a time funding, but many others give increasingly multi-year funding. Norwegians give framework agreements to us, the Norwegian NGOs, which is extremely important when we build a large operation with 20 other nations supporting us. So do Sweden, so do the Netherlands, so do other donors. Quality funding, closely linked to localization funding. We're making progress. It's going a little bit late and slow, but I'm sure you will be able to be a positive example in Ireland. And I salute you and wish you a very happy annual conference.